Welcome to That's Inclusive, where we talk about disability and what it means to live a full life engaging in our communities. What does that look like, and how can we work together to make our world a more inclusive place?
Hi, everybody. I'm Isadora Rodriguez-Legendre, the Executive Director at the New Hampshire Council on Developmental Disabilities, and this is That's Inclusive, our podcast. Welcome to the show. Today we have a couple of guests from the Disability Rights Center, New Hampshire, and I will have them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fran Broderick. I'm a senior staff attorney at Disability Rights, and I also direct our monitoring and investigations program.
Wonderful.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nico Walker. I'm a staff attorney with the Disability Rights Center. Thank you so much for Isadora for having us on today.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for coming. This is super exciting for me. I've been hearing about exciting projects coming out of the Disability Rights Center, and so I had reached out so that some of our listeners could learn more about the things that you two in particular have been working on over there. So is there someone who wants to start?
Okay. I will start. So one of the exciting things that has happened at DRC in the last few months is the release of our Disability Facility Hub, which we call the Facility Hub. So this is a project that we got a grant through the New Hampshire Bar Foundation and some other federal agencies to put together. We decided to do this project because we felt like there was a lack of real information about placements that are called community-based placements for people with developmental disabilities and brain injuries throughout our state. And we felt like people weren't getting a good understanding of what that actually meant. So saying community-based, a lot of those facilities actually have a lot of the hallmarks of institutions rather than community-based living. So we created the hub, which is a searchable database of residential placements throughout the state of New Hampshire, from the north to the south. And it allows an individual to go on, look at individual facilities. You can search by region, by age, by type of facility, and get information that isn't on the facility website, that hasn't been sort of nicely edited and tailored to, look perfect. And this is information that we have gotten from being out in the community in those facilities. So there are pictures we took up for all of the different facilities. There's information on the number of individuals. There are related licensing reports if there's ever been an investigation by licensing. There are police reports for certain facilities as well. So we're trying to make it a bit more transparent. So that families or legislators, when they're talking about these kinds of placements, get a better sense of what that actually means.
Yeah. So you mentioned that they may have institutional qualities. Are there some sort of requirements or things that you're looking for that would qualify them for this list? Or are you trying to list as many places as possible? Is there a minimum amount of people that need to be there to qualify?
Yeah, that's a great question. So no, not really. We're trying to cast as broad a net as possible so that people can understand what the entire system and all the options look like. We are not posting photos of facilities that have less than 4 individuals. So under 4 is a little bit different. They don't have to meet certain licensing requirements when they're under that number. So that isn't a focus of the hub. We do have some of those facilities through some of the area agencies have group homes of that number. But we aren't including exterior photos or interior photos because we want to make sure that those homes are not singled out if
Yeah.
they're not otherwise advertised as a community placement.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially I think about intensive treatment support homes. Like there might be some ITS homes that are less than 3 people,
Right.
but that still might have some institution-like qualities just because of the level of supports and services that the individuals themselves require to be safe and in community. And so it's got to be like a hard thing to juggle, is like the needs of the individual versus the type of setting, and whether or not it is the least restrictive for
Right.
that individual, right? That's a whole nother question.
And a critical question for us, we obviously at DRC advocate for the least restrictive environment. I know that's really
Yeah.
important to the council as
Absolutely.
well. And so I think when families in particular, or even a legislator hears that it's a community placement,
Yeah.
there's a certain image that comes to mind.
Right.
And that may not align with the
Yeah.
reality of the placement.
Right.
So I think where we don't include information for smaller homes out, we are concerned about the privacy of the individuals in those homes.
Okay.
So we don't want anything to identify where those individuals may live. All of our photos, nothing includes photos of individuals and facilities, bedrooms, anything that could reveal,
Yeah.
a person with a disability. So we're very careful about that.
Yeah.
On the
I mean,
hub.
it sounds really cool, like if you're a family or an individual who is looking to move maybe out of their parents' house and wants to see what some of the options are in the community and how either restrictive or how many issues that residence has had in the past. Maybe a really important factor in deciding kind of where to go and what to pursue.
Exactly. And we look at, those homes, but also on the hub, we have places like New Hampshire Hospital, so hospital
Right.
settings, Hampstead Hospital. So we're looking not just at the DD side, but mental health side as well, though there are less community-based residences. That's
Yeah.
not the focus.
Yeah, well, that's really
Yeah.
cool.
So we encourage people to check it out. The best way to do that is to go onto our website. It is its own special section on the website.
Okay.
It is an accessible website, so easy to navigate. And I think the best way for people to get a sense of what it looks like is to go play around with it.
Yeah. Great. Well, and your website is?
DRCNH.org, O-R-G.
Thank you. So, Nico, you're also working on some really exciting stuff that the DD Council in particular is invested in more ways than one. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing over there at the DRC.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much to the DD Council for funding this initiative. This project is about justice in school discipline.
Yeah.
It's really, really important. Just to give you some numbers right off the bat of why this is so important. A child who is suspended is really 3 times more likely to drop out of school by 10th grade than a child who's never been suspended.
Wow.
3 times more likely. And dropping out triples the chance of incarceration later in life. This is what we call the school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important to address this issue early on. And that's one of the major kind of goals of this project, is to disrupt that school to prison pipeline early on in the process. And so the big goal here is to create systems change in the use of exclusionary discipline. And when we talk about exclusionary discipline, we mean suspensions and expulsions.
Okay.
So we want to create systems change in the use of those exclusionary discipline policies through parent education, through individual representation, and then through systemic advocacy. And we're really excited to take an integrated advocacy approach to this really difficult problem involving litigation, involving outreach, on the local level, in the communities, and that's why it's so great. And we really appreciate the opportunity to speak directly to folks in the community through, this podcast and other outreach events, through communications, as we're doing now also, know your rights training, and then also some policy work as well. So we're really taking a broad spectrum approach to this problem because it is a really thorny one. This is not the first time folks in New Hampshire have try to tackle this issue, but it remains a very, very difficult problem to address. And then I also just want to say that we've taken a look in the first aspect of this first phase of this project. We're looking at the research, and what we found is really troubling, actually. New Hampshire students covered by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the IDEA, are 3 times as likely to receive 1 or more out-of-school suspensions as their non-disabled peers. So if you're a student with a disability, you're 3 times more likely to receive a suspension than a non-disabled peer. And so that is, obviously includes a broad array of disabilities, not only developmental disabilities, but just shows you the kind of disproportionate rates of school discipline that we're seeing, and shows, I remember being a student, especially, maybe school you're not feeling is the place for you.
Yeah.
And if you're being suspended or expelled, that really only enforces that message even further. And as that data, illustrates before, can really set you on a path that's not good for yourself, not good for your family, not good for your community, not good for our society. And so I'm really, really thankful and grateful to the DD Council for funding this important work. This is a 2-year project, and we're really excited to tackle this thorny and complex issue.
Yeah, this is definitely an issue that's been on our radar for a real long time. And a few years ago, we actually had an intern or trainee from the New Hampshire Maine Lend program who did a little bit of research and actually also looked at kind of how intersectionality of students with diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds are also disproportionately excluded. So when you add that to disability, I would imagine that the numbers get even bigger.
Totally. It's a big multiplier effect, and it's something that we're really laser focused on that intersectionality between not only disability, but then also, backgrounds, different backgrounds, different communities, diverse communities. That's a big area of this project as well, and one that we really want to address. And that's why it's really, really important for folks to know their rights, that we're out in the community doing communications work like this, working with our communications and outreach team. That's a really strong element of the team at DRC. It's not only myself. We are led, and this project's overseen by our fearless executive director, Stephanie Patrick, and we all have a whole suite of team members working on that. Not only the outreach team, communications team, overseen by our managing attorney as well. And so this is a full team effort. Working towards this issue. I
have questions, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer them, just that come up as part of the definition of exclusionary discipline. We hear a lot from families and parents whose children are kind of in segregated learning environments, or they're taken out of the classroom, not necessarily expelled or suspended, but due to some either behavior or challenge related to their disability, then all of a sudden they're not with their peers during the school day, but that's not considered kind of to the level of exclusionary discipline as defined by this project. Is that right?
Exactly. And as Fran mentioned, our big focus at DRC is to mainline students, to integrate students with disabilities to the extent possible with their non-disabled peers. And so that's actually really foregrounded. One of the things that I want to talk about is I want to just I want parents, when they have, for example, an early pickup, if their child, the principal calls, hey, Johnny's had an incident at school, can you come pick him up? Yeah. It's really important, number one, for the parent to ask, is this a suspension? Mm-hmm. Because as you said in your question, there's a lot of these gray zones that the schools operate in, and it's really, really important for parents to assert their rights and ask and push back on the school administrators, is this a suspension? And then the second thing I would ask parents to do when they're experiencing these challenges is to create a behavior log so they can track the number, the instances, the reason given, how long the student's been excluded for. And it's really, really important to have that information collected as you go on through the school year. And so that's those are two tips that I would give to parents right off the bat. And then the third tip is to reach out to us, reach out to the Disability Rights Center. Fran is a wonderful intake attorney on the Disability Rights Center. We have free legal consultation. So if you have questions about your educational rights, give us a call. Our number is 603-228-0432. And you have a chance to speak with an attorney for no cost. And that's a great opportunity to troubleshoot the issue that you're experiencing. You can get information and kind of better understand your legal rights. So if you have a question, don't hesitate. We're here, and we're here to help.
Yeah. So, and then you also mentioned that it's a real team approach, and that's great to hear. So, how are you, planning to do outreach or engagement with folks who have been impacted by exclusionary discipline in school? And then how do you hope to make that systems change? Obviously, systems change takes a long time, and a lot of times you have to identify the issues that some people don't believe exist in our system, and that's always the first step. But thinking ahead a few years, where do you want to see this go?
Okay, so basically our project right now is 3 phases. Number one is our research phase that we're in right now, doing the research on the data, doing the research on the legal background. Our second phase is the outreach and communications. And this is a really, really important part. And this, this project really hits home for me because, before attending Harvard Law School, I served as an educator, actually as an 8th grade special education teacher in a Title I school. So I've been on kind of the other side of this as well. And then also as a Peace Corps volunteer, I think it's really, really important to, go to the communities that are affected, be with those communities, listen to those communities, and understand the challenges that they're experiencing. So a big part of this project is that outreach portion. So I will be there in the community. Look out for me as well at some of these events in the community to not only understand the challenges, but to give folks information and referrals in real time to troubleshoot their issues. And then on that. Phase 3 is the systemic change part. So, there'll be individual representations as well. We're going to prioritize, policy change as to the extent possible in those representations, but then also working with our policy director potentially for state level change as well. Because, as we talked about in the school to prison pipeline, really has a big negative impact on our society in the long term. So it behooves everybody to pay attention and solve these issues as early as possible before it grows out of hand.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I definitely think that there are folks who are incarcerated who would there have been support or, kind of more systemic advocacy wouldn't need to be there. And it is troubling how, we blame the individual a lot of times, and then those labels and those stigmas kind of stay with them throughout their lives. And one of the things that we definitely want to challenge is that kind of perception that people with disabilities are a drain on the system, that people with disabilities don't bring value to communities, that they can't live a meaningful, full life, because we've seen it. We've all seen it, right, in our communities where people are supported the way they should be in order to thrive and to really be contributing members of society. And so it definitely is troubling that this is still happening, right? Despite years of research that shows that if we do something further upstream, we can certainly prevent this from happening. So is there anything else, Fran or Nico, that the DRC is working on or wants to leave people with? I know that in the past, the DD Council has supported other projects the Disability Rights Center New Hampshire has worked on, including things like supported decision-making as an alternative to guardianship. You all have some of the best voter toolkits and resource guides for people with disabilities to know your voters' rights, and there are a lot of changes I hear. I know that there are a lot of changes that are coming up as a result of recent legislation that might impact voters with disabilities. But what are some of the other things you think it's important for people to know that the DRC is working on, or reasons why they should call?
So I think one of the newer initiatives that we'll have, this is very much in the development phase, but we've recently learned about some concerning information of abuse and neglect in the area agency system. And we are going to be addressing that. And one of the ways in which we're going to do that is put together a legal rights presentation for individuals, families, individuals who are in the DD system, so that they can understand their legal rights, their individual rights, their rights in group settings, and understand and try to simplify the state complaint process so that families and others understand the mechanism for a complaint and how to go about doing that.
Yeah, wow. That's like not a simple undertaking by any stretch. We were actually just talking about this in the office. Several of our council members are people with intellectual developmental disabilities. And we were just talking about today how certain caregivers don't even realize when they're violating someone's rights, or when they're stepping over the line and being verbally abusive, or being abusive by withholding care or withholding services because an individual is not behaving the way you want them to. And those nuances are really important for individuals to understand, that that's not okay.
Absolutely.
And that they have the right to complain, and then how to do that. So I'm glad.
Right. And to participate in the direction of their services, to be involved at that really sort of the beginning of the development of a plan. Exactly. I think it's easier for people to identify more intensive incidents of abuse. So it's easier for us to understand if someone is hit, if someone is physically harmed, that's abusive and that shouldn't happen. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen in the system, unfortunately. I think what you were talking about, a lot of those incidents of neglect are much more pervasive, and we're very concerned about that. So we're going to be talking, doing a pretty thorough presentation. We're starting at the State Family Support Council in December. So we're doing a legal rights presentation there.
Fantastic.
And then we're hoping to go to all the different family support councils. And then we'll decide from there where else we are needed and how else we can disseminate all that information.
That's really wonderful news. One of the kind of hills that I like to shout from is the idea that the state does not really do person-centered planning very well, and how everything you read says that this is a person-centered plan and this is person-centered goals. And I really think that that line of choosing between two bad choices is not a choice, right? And you're not being person-centered if you say, we're going on this outing or this activity, and your choice is to not go.
And we're all going.
We're all going.
So it's not based on individual interest, choice, likes. It's, we've all heard about the trip to Walmart, right? We're all going to get in the van and we're all going to go to Walmart. You don't have money to spend at Walmart.
Right.
But we're going to go and do that.
Yes.
And that is not what is meant by community-based. Right. That is not what is meant by person-centered planning.
Absolutely.
I absolutely agree.
So I'm excited to hear about kind of efforts for people to really understand what their rights are, and that the state is responsible for creating person-centered opportunities for them to engage in the community and other people and make friends and, do stuff they want to do, just like the rest of us.
Exactly. So that's going to be a big effort, and we'll certainly, be coordinating with the council as needed to make sure that we're getting our information to the right people.
That's awesome.
And those who need to hear it.
Yeah. So one of the other areas that I hear recently from families is just kind of like how long it takes to get either determinations for services or recertifications, the issues with the documentation that is required for that. And is that like another area where if someone just really feels like the system is not meeting their needs, or if they need some additional help because they know they've done everything they're supposed to and they're still being told that they have to wait more for or produce a piece of paper that they already produced or things like that?
And when you talk about programs, are we talking about Medicaid?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that that's what we're talking about. Yeah. So one of the things that absolutely, you can call us at DRC to talk to an attorney. As Nico said, that's free. Mm-hmm. And we, schedule about a week out. But on, certain times you can call and get an appointment within a day or two. So we really encourage people to call. That's something we will advise on. In terms of a great resource for individuals who are in that situation would be contacting the Ombudsman at DHHS.
Great.
So that individual, that office can really help with those kinds of, technical issues of, I've submitted this 4 times. I'm on New Hampshire Easy. I see that I did it.
Yes.
It was sent.
Yes.
It was accepted. And I'm being told by a caseworker they don't have any of my paperwork.
Great. We'll make sure
we put great
the Ombudsman office information in the episode notes so that people can find it easily.
Perfect. So I think that's a great resource for people. You can call us certainly, but I think that's a great first step.
Yeah, I'm always telling people to call you all just because, I don't have a lot of the in-depth understanding of like what is a legal issue, what isn't a legal issue when it comes to people's very specific situations or cases. So I send them to the experts. I think it's important that people get the information and resources that they need in order to make sure that they are getting the supports and services that they require to live in the community. Like you said, it's all about being inclusive.
Yep, absolutely. We're happy to. That's what Nico and I are here for, along with our coworker Lynn, who's been doing this for close to 35 years.
Lynn was on the council for a while.
Yes, absolutely. So Attorney Lynn Clay, if there was ever an expert in this, it's her. So you're in good hands when you give us a call.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for coming. Is there anything you want to share before we say goodbye?
I was just going to say, we talked about education, we talked about the area agencies, but we also help out in other areas, on the employment side as well, housing, many, many different areas. So, please give us a call. We're happy to help. And thank you so much for having us on today.
Thank you for coming. It's been really fun.
The one thing I want to make clear, so the hub is a searchable database that tracks and monitors facilities that serve people with disabilities. So I think it's important to understand what facility means.
Okay.
So we talk about this on the actual hub itself. So we have definitions and explanations there, which are helpful. But just briefly, we're talking about a place where children or adults live and are provided with assistance by paid staff. Okay, so we're talking about activities of daily living, medication administration, day program planning, etc. So that's really what we're talking about when we say a facility. And there's, as I said, a more in-depth explanation of that on the hub itself. But that's really what this is rooted in. And looking at sort of across facilities, there's common characteristics like, reduced privacy, set schedules, rules, that have to be followed and complied with, structured recreation time, visits and having to schedule or arrange visits. So these are the kinds of characteristics that are shared across a lot of facilities.
Okay. And that makes sense because to be called a facility, we're saying even if it's in the community, if it's limiting your access to certain things, or if it's intended or unintended, if it's limiting your ability to do the things you want to do when you want to do them with whom you want to do them,
right?
Then that
and
qualifies.
There's a congregate aspect to this. So you're not an individual person living in one home. I think there's some arguments that enhanced family care settings probably pick up some of these characteristics in terms of limitation.
Yeah.
But the model of that is meant to be different in terms of living in what is your home versus many of us live in this home where people work.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thanks again for coming. And this is Isadora Rodriguez-Legendre from the New Hampshire Council on Developmental Disabilities. Just wanted to say thank you one more time to the Disability Rights Center New Hampshire for all that you do to support the rights and inclusion of people with disabilities around the state. We appreciate the work you do, and we hope to hear from you again soon.
Great. Thanks, Isadora.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Vanessa Blaze, and this was a production of the New Hampshire Council on Developmental Disabilities, produced by Isadora Rodriguez-Legendre and Vanessa Blaze, with many thanks to Josh Hardy and the rest of the crew here at Concord TV. We love to have guests with differing perspectives. These views are personal and do not necessarily represent those of the DD Council.